The story usually starts quietly, with a moment so small that no one notices its weight until later. A harsh environment, a cruel crowd, and someone gentle caught in the middle. Most people walk past kindness when cruelty fills the room, but one person doesn't. One person steps in, not for applause, not for reward, but because their instinct refuses to let softness be swallowed by the world's hunger for dominance. That single act, simple on the surface, sends ripples far beyond the moment. Protection offered without motive becomes a language the soul remembers, and the kind one, who once felt invisible, carries that memory like a flame. In a place full of shadows, the presence that guarded them becomes legend long before anyone realizes what actually happened. Over time, stories grow around that moment. The gentle one doesn't retell it with drama. They speak of safety with gratitude. They describe not just the act, but the feeling, the relief of having someone step in when silence from others felt louder than the threat itself. The story spreads because kindness rarely receives defenders, and when it does, the world pays attention. Those who heard it begin to question their own courage. They see the difference between watching and intervening. The quiet defender becomes a symbol of action in a world addicted to spectatorship. Something shifts in the environment. What started as protection becomes influence, not through force, but through example. Real strength inspires silently. As the story circulates, the gentle one begins to attract others who resonate with sincerity, people who know the weight of vulnerability, people who value loyalty, people who understand what it means to stand alone until someone stands beside you. These individuals don't gather out of fear or obligation. They gather out of respect. The one who offered protection unknowingly created a center of gravity. Others gravitate toward sincerity the way wounded hearts gravitate toward warmth. This isn't a following, it's a recognition. Those who once stayed quiet now stand tall. Their unity forms naturally, almost unconsciously, because shared values create stronger bonds than shared opinions ever could. With time, the group becomes something more than sympathy. They develop a fierce appreciation for the one who shielded kindness in a world that often punishes it. They sense authenticity the way animals sense storms. And authenticity becomes the foundation of loyalty. The world underestimates quiet loyalty because it doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it doesn't compete, it commits. What began as a single act becomes a ripple that evolves into a movement. The kind soul, once fragile in the presence of cruelty, now carries a strength multiplied by those who support them. And at the center of it stands the protector, unaware of how deeply their actions shape the environment. Toxic people sense this shift faster than anyone else. They recognize danger not in violence, but in unity. When one person becomes a symbol of moral courage, the manipulators begin losing influence. Their power always relied on division. Their control always depended on fear. Now they witness something unfamiliar. People standing together, communicating, moving with purpose. No shouting, no theatrics, just clarity. The presence of a loyal group becomes a silent challenge to everything toxic behavior depends on. It exposes weakness in manipulation and strength in integrity. The environment changes, not because chaos was defeated, but because someone decided to interrupt it. The most interesting transformation occurs within the protector themselves. The individual who acted out of instinct begins noticing how the world reacts. They see once timid faces grow confident. They hear whispers about courage they didn't realize they displayed. The role wasn't chosen, but it fits. Something within them changes when they recognize that protecting someone wasn't just an act. It was a statement. A declaration that cruelty will not go unanswered. A reminder that kindness deserves guardians, just as much as truth deserves defenders. What began as a moment becomes a moral compass. And moral compasses attract people searching for direction. As more people gather, the protector starts carrying a new weight. Influence built from sincerity comes with responsibility. People look toward those who stood firm when others hesitated. They listen. They learn. They follow not out of fear, but out of admiration for someone who acted when action was difficult. This type of loyalty isn't transactional. It's spiritual. It isn't loud. It's absolute. A legion forms not by force but by faith. Every person who joins carries the memory of what that single act meant for someone who needed it most. And loyalty built on gratitude becomes unbreakable. The whisper of oath taking doesn't arrive through ceremony. It appears in actions. People stepping into conflicts with courage they learned from observing. People defending others the way the protector defended the gentle one. People refusing to stay silent in the face of cruelty. A quiet army forms. Individuals who have seen what real leadership looks like and choose to reflect it. This isn't about dominance. This is about legacy. True influence doesn't require thrones. It requires character, and character spreads quicker than fear when the right example leads it. In the shadows, those who once held power through intimidation begin to crumble. They sense their influence slipping as loyalty shifts away from manipulation and toward integrity. They whisper accusations, but the environment no longer listens. The protector didn't seek authority, yet authority found them. That's what unnerves the toxic. Real power doesn't need performance. It grows from respect, not fear. It builds alliances, not dependencies. The Legion forms because people choose to stand beside someone who made them feel safe in a world designed to belittle kindness. That choice is stronger than any threat. Courage rarely enters a room with an announcement. It always arrives disguised as a simple decision. One moment where a person chooses dignity over fear, truth over silence, and action over comfort. In a toxic environment, this moment feels small at first. A bully pushes too far. A manipulator crosses a line. A cruel remark goes unchecked. Everyone else lowers their eyes, pretending not to see. The air grows heavy with unspoken agreement that nothing will change. Then one person steps forward. One person interrupts the pattern. One person breaks the rhythm of control with a sentence, a gesture, even a stare that refuses to bow. That single act slices through the atmosphere like a blade. Suddenly the toxic ones feel the ground shift beneath them. No one expected such a quiet rebellion, yet it alters everything instantly. Once that act of courage happens, something awakens in the silent observers. The people who felt powerless begin to feel possibility, as if the air carries new oxygen. They start questioning the lies they accepted. They begin noticing how deeply they shrank themselves to survive. Someone else's bravery becomes evidence that the environment was only powerful because everyone agreed to pretend it was. One spark exposes how dim the room actually was. The manipulator who once controlled the narrative feels the pressure of eyes watching, evaluating, remembering. A single act forces others to confront their own passivity. It is uncomfortable, but liberating. The environment doesn't collapse immediately, but the cracks appear. And once cracks appear, collapse becomes inevitable. Inside toxic homes, the shift is even more dramatic. A parent, partner, or relative who relied on guilt or emotional control senses the rebellion instantly. They feel the moment someone stops explaining themselves, stops absorbing blame, stops apologizing for existing. That decision might look quiet on the surface, but it moves like an earthquake through the entire dynamic. The one who always played peacemaker puts down the burden. The one who carried everyone's emotions refuses to carry more. And when a person who's been silent finally chooses themselves, the entire household chemistry changes. Those who thrived on dominance sense the change before anyone else. It terrifies them because control requires compliance. When compliance breaks, their power dissolves. In relationships, courage can appear as distance. The moment someone stops responding to manipulation, the story rewrites itself. The partner who relied on emotional swings loses access to the one thing that fueled them: reaction. Silence becomes resistance. Stability becomes rebellion. The toxic partner grows unsettled as the emotional script they rehearsed no longer works. They try guilt, they try charm, they try chaos. None of it lands. The dynamic flips because courage isn't always confrontation. Sometimes it's withdrawal. Sometimes it's not attending the argument. Sometimes it's choosing peace over repetition. And the moment that choice is made, the environment that once thrived on imbalance starts gasping for survival. In friend groups built on gossip and insecurity, the effect is surgical. When one person refuses to participate in conversations meant to tear someone down, the entire energy shifts. The ringleader loses legitimacy. The group begins feeling exposed because cruelty works only when done collaboratively. A single refusal becomes contagious. People question why they tolerated so much bitterness. Some drift away quietly. Others confront the toxic behavior outright. The one who first spoke up becomes a catalyst without meaning to. They didn't intend to change the group. They simply refused to feed the rot. But refusing to feed rot is the first step to killing it. And once the rot dries, every dishonest bond falls apart with it. Courage in workplaces spreads even faster. Offices built on politics and intimidation depend heavily on silence. The moment someone pushes back, respectfully, clearly, without fear, it destabilizes the structure. The manipulative coworker who used subtle jabs suddenly looks small under the light of accountability. The superior who abused authority begins stumbling over their own authority. The entire environment becomes alert because everyone senses a new precedent. If one person can speak truth without breaking, others realize they can too. The toxic individuals feel surrounded even without a word being spoken, because courage has a way of shifting the center of gravity in any room. Power moves toward integrity, even when integrity stands alone. The psychology behind this shift is simple and sharp. Toxic structures survive through learned helplessness. When people believe they can't change the environment, they adapt to it. When someone breaks that illusion, the spell dissolves. Humans mimic strength quicker than weakness. When courage appears, it spreads. When dignity rises, others stand taller. A single act of bravery becomes a map for those who forgot their own power. It reminds them that survival is not the same as acceptance. And once people remember their worth, toxic systems have no oxygen left. Even the cruelest individuals understand the danger of that shift. The moment one person stands firm, the manipulator feels threatened in ways they can't explain. Their control relied on subtle fear, and fear dissolves under example. One act becomes the blueprint for resistance. It's no longer about who shouted loudest or who controlled the room. The new authority becomes the one who carried themselves with clarity. Courage steals attention, respect, and moral gravity from the toxic ones. It rewrites alliances, rewrites communication, rewrites expectations. Nothing returns to what it was before. What makes the change permanent is the memory it leaves behind. People never forget the moment someone disrupted cruelty. They remember who stood. They remember what shifted. They remember how different the atmosphere felt afterward. Even long after the situation changes, that act becomes a reference point. It marks the moment the environment lost its grip. And every person present carries that memory like a silent oath. It becomes a reminder that courage doesn't need an army to begin. Only one spine, one breath, one decision. The ripple follows naturally.